massive Bitcoin pullback, and now there are allegations of manipulation. We're seeing a downward cascade, a cascading effect as long positions are being liquidated here, and all of this is leading to a downward spiral. Let's take a look at what's behind it. Additionally, there are new statements from Christian Lindner regarding Bitcoin, or rather, crypto. The former finance minister is speaking up here. Let's see what he has to say. Here we see the Bitcoin price at 100K, US dollar falling. But it's really interesting what the Bitcoin historian says here. Who cares if we hit 100K? The US dollar is dropping, but we're still going to rise to 1 million in the long run. And that's ultimately the important thing to take away from this. This is just short-term volatility. In the long run, hitting 1 million is almost inevitable. Because fiat money continues to expand, Bitcoin is solid, and so on. I don't need to explain the whole story to you all over again. But of course I understand it when people get nervous and all that. Earlier, I got another question in our Telegram group, where someone asked, when is the Bitcoin breakout finally going to happen? So my answer was simply, we've had a Bitcoin breakout for 16 years. Bitcoin has been breaking out consistently for 16 years. The problem is when you choose the wrong time frame, then it sometimes looks like this, like when Bitcoin takes a dip. The more you zoom out, the more you realize that we're actually already in a supercycle. But we still want to take a look at this. What's going on here right now? As for Marty, he's someone who's been writing a ton here over the last few days. How the Bitcoin price is systematically manipulated on exchanges. Suppliers like Michael Saylor would now say that these aren't manipulations, because they're using it here. Exchanges are basically using their large liquidity to position themselves very, very cheaply in the market, to trigger such liquidations here. But here it's seen as manipulation. That means here the royal flush continues. The exchanges are using Wintermute to further sell the assets contained in their order books and continue to push the prices down. Keep in mind that if you're always absolutely convinced that enough leveraged longs would be removed, sending stable coins to market makers to buy assets in the market and drive the prices back up, which leads to new shorts getting liquidated. That's how markets work. Don't let yourself be shaken out of your spot holdings. Buy at the low and take the assets off the exchanges into your own custody. So here, self-custody. So in the end, it's really simple. That means, for example, when big players who have a lot of liquidity are here, when they see, okay, there are now a lot of long positions, what do they do then? They basically sell off all their assets. What happens then? The leveraged long positions are getting liquidated. That means the Bitcoin price is dropping. And then they wait until a bottom is created down here or until enough stuff has been liquidated. And then you just take the same liquidity that you still have on hand. And they slam that back into the market, buying up the market here. And when the price starts to rise, something interesting happens. As the price goes up, short positions might be set here, because suddenly the market switches to bearish. During the rise, when liquidity is pumped back into the market, the short positions will get liquidated. Then we see the cascading effect going back up. Then maybe, when it all cascades, it could even be at a higher new peak than we were before the cascade. And that's basically the old trick that's been used in the stock markets for a really long time. And now, here from Marty, it's listed out again. He's been making a ton of posts in the last few days about how this works in more detail. This is, of course, just a very brief overview. In detail, it goes much, much deeper. But you shouldn't let yourself be scared here. As you all say here, just keep holding on. Dollar cost averaging HODL and ideally self-custody. And then you guys are pretty well set up here. It'll be fine soon, who knows? Go ahead, walk barefoot or something, chill out and don't panic about anything here. If there are any short-term pullbacks here. What's way more interesting, we just had the push from the FDP. Now I posted the AFD politician here yesterday. The one here in the European Parliament arguing in favor of Bitcoin. And now we actually have a new clip from Christian Lindner, who was invited to a finance podcast. And take a look at what he has to say about Bitcoin and crypto.
They are also advocating for the preservation of cash. What of the taken from the party program? Yeah, cash is still being upheld. But what's your stance on crypto? About Bitcoin and other coins? Is there a Lindner meme coin soon?
I think crypto assets are right and good. If you remember, in 2022, I created legal certainty regarding taxation in my previous role as finance minister, like we have you now. I registered with the Marty in crypto assets. Directive at the European level also advocated for this. that there isn't a de facto ban on Bitcoin or significant obstacles. So in that sense, it's not anything new if I talk about it during the election campaign. That was already a topic for me in the past. I'm in favor of strengthening the crypto hub in Europe and Germany. And for me, that would be a measure that we're working towards having ETFs on Bitcoin as well. That's the case in Europe, as you know. Not possible. They have in the US. For me, that would be a significant change in the market if we got that. Would the barrier be lowered even further for private and small investors?
Yeah, at least there are already ETFs, so you can do it like this. Somewhat implement.
Notice, in America, they're talking about creating a stockpile. In America, they're talking about abolishing CBDCs. And that's what they've done now. In America, they're creating their own crypto. In America, they have their own crypto. In America, they have a Department of Government Efficiency. And in Germany, we're talking about whether we might eventually allow Bitcoin ETFs. You can really see how far behind we are compared to the U.S. That means you have to approach this completely differently. You really have to bring out the chainsaw here. You really have to say, hey folks, we're going all in now. We're going all in on Bitcoin now. We need a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're standing against CBDCs. The FDP is even advocating for the digital euro here. So how messed up is that? That's way too little. What's being demanded here? Like, we need Bitcoin ETFs and all that. That's already the status quo. I mean, we have to stay competitive somehow. If Germany wants to stay competitive and not get left behind digitally, then you have to take much, much bigger steps here. Then you might even have to sell your gold here. Go into Bitcoin. That's already. I might have exaggerated a bit there, but that's pretty clear. But starting with some Bitcoin ETFs here, that's definitely already very, I'd say, far behind compared to the US. I mean, the FDP has even pushed for a strategic Bitcoin reserve or a strategic crypto reserve. I'd say we're really lagging behind the U.S. I mean, the FDP has even pushed for a strategic Bitcoin reserve or a strategic crypto reserve. Here, they always talk about crypto. Here, just like in the US, the difference between Bitcoin and crypto probably isn't really understood yet. Although you have to say here in Germany, hey, at least if someone is talking positively about Bitcoin or crypto here, that's already a good thing. But that just shows how far behind they are here. And now it's really interesting that Christian Lindner and the FDP have invited people to a blockchain crypto roundtable or something like that here in the Bundestag. And Lindner is talking about crypto, saying, that's great and all. And now it's also interesting, hey, don't just talk, actually show me your portfolio. Alice Weidel, we now know, could potentially be the new chancellor here in Germany. Owns Bitcoin. That's just amazing. And now let's see what's going on here. The former finance minister, when it comes to his portfolio, is he also owns Bitcoin?
And here's another question that comes from my community. So, in the buy the dip community, how do you personally invest your money? So do you use some kind of robo-advisor? Do you let your ETF savings plans run? Are you with a neo-broker? How do you do it?
Asset, first of all, I have asset real estate. That's also pretty strong for me at this stage of my life. And on top of that, I actually have ETF savings plans. During the time I was finance minister, just ETFs. Now, I sometimes have a single share or a derivative that I buy. I didn't do that as finance minister for compliance reasons. There were no compliance rules for me as finance minister, but I voluntarily said, I'm not going to deal with individual stocks just to avoid any trouble. Because I'm constantly being accused of something. There are always stories about me, and people are constantly trying to pin something on me. And the best thing is you're just untouchable because you're not doing anything.
I find that interesting. So he's talking about crypto, he's talking about Bitcoin and stuff. But he says here that he doesn't own any Bitcoin himself. So he definitely hasn't listed anything here, that he owns Bitcoin or crypto or anything in the end. On one hand, that's maybe a bit understandable, because he obviously owns Bitcoin here. He says, yeah, he wants to have a market-neutral portfolio. But on the other hand, Alice Weidel, she also owns Bitcoin and openly says in talk shows like Maischberger, yeah, hey, I own Bitcoin. And that's basically it. What I'm telling you, people, don't pay so much attention to what people tell you. Instead, look at how people are invested. If people own Bitcoin themselves, then they have an incentive to pump Bitcoin forward. But if someone here doesn't own any Bitcoin and tells you they're all about Bitcoin and they're the super Bitcoin pro or something, then that's really got a bit of a shady vibe to it. And it's the same way in the U.S. In the US, we have Donald Trump. And if we look at Donald Trump's portfolio, then he definitely has Bitcoin. If we look at the whole Donald Trump team, they have hundreds of millions in Bitcoin. If we take a look at Howard Lutnick or someone like that, he says about himself that he has hundreds of millions in Bitcoin, and after this bull run, it's going to be billions in Bitcoin. And that's basically what I want to pass on to you. Don't pay attention to what people are saying, but rather look at how they are positioned themselves. Hey, but still, don't let that throw you off. Bitcoin to the moon. We'll see you if you still want to buy Bitcoin. I'll put a link down below for you. 21 Bitcoin, how you can easily and safely buy Bitcoin. Here in the code, you get 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Anyone who buys Bitcoin here. He officially has more Bitcoin than Christian Lindner and also officially has more Bitcoin than Germany. See you later. See you later. Peace out.